If you can see me, it's Cosmic Comfort time. I'm so excited to be with you guys today. There we are. Yay! We are live. Well, and welcome to Cosmic Comfort, everybody. It's been a minute since we've been in sacred space together. I have missed you. I don't know if you've missed me too, but here we are. I'm very, very, very happy to see you. Oh, great. Karen Brown sees me, which means I'm real. It's wonderful to see you. And I was in medicine space last weekend doing ceremony myself as part of what I call my annual tune-ups energetically. And so I'm still in that space. I'm still really soft and in the medicine. And so it's a really fun time to come live with you, especially given that you have pretty amazing questions for today. And I'm hoping I've got some pretty amazing answers in response. But I'm thrilled to see you guys. How's it going? Amanda says first time live since July, so welcome back. That's exciting. First time to Cosmic Comfort for Vanya, which is beautiful. Isn't that cool? Well, of course you can come see me. I do live full moon ritual here every month. So we'd love to have you. You can always go to our events page on Facebook it's facebook.com/sagegoddess, and then you go under events and you'll find all the links to our full moon rituals. Would love to have you. We just had a live event here in my classroom last Friday to make incense together. So I do live events and it's always fun. I mean, here's the thing, I love doing virtual work. I teach most of what I teach, my students are virtual, right? All of my students in Soul Shift, which I do teach online classes. And so that's another way that people work with me. And that's my biggest community is Soul Shift, and they're all virtual. But once a year I do a retreat for my students, where they get to come to Sage Goddess headquarters and spend 2 days with me wall to wall, right? And I bring in practitioners to do some really special things. So what's nice for me, because I still do like the human contact. I like to hug. I like to make eye contact in person. It's very sacred to me. And so I like the hybrid experience. We do most of what we do virtually, but it's super fun when I get to squeeze you in person too. So now I'm in Los Angeles. I'm in the City of Angels in California, which is where I was raised as well. I was born just south of here in Orange County, but I've lived in the South Bay of Los Angeles is what it's called. We are the ring around, as you look at the map of California, we're that little ring that includes Palos Verdes and then all the beach cities, Redondo Beach, Manhattan Beach, Hermosa Beach to Santa Monica, and then around to Malibu. We're that little inverted C on the California coastline. So Stephanie's here from Illinois. That's right. Breezy's going to come see me. It's so good to see you guys. So yeah, wherever you are, what's kind of cool about being in LA, because Sage Goddess headquarters is about 20 minutes south of LAX. So if you ever do find yourself in LA, we're not far from the airport. You can catch an Uber and be here in 20 minutes, and it's super fun to be able to connect with you in person. For today, we're going to be doing our virtual thing. So I'm going to smudge a little bit. Is there anybody, and I love that Canada's in the house, our second biggest community for Sage Goddess outside the US is in Canada, which doesn't surprise me. Canada is an extremely magical place and has a lineage and a presence and a beauty all its own. Also, some of the best food on the planet happens to be in Canada, I have to say. And so we have a big Canadian Sage Goddess family, I have to say, outside of the U.S. I'm so glad. Well, whenever you come to LA, come and say hello to us. Our shop is open 7 days a week from 12 to 6, but, outside of major holidays. So we're always here to meet and greet you, and always thrilled to have you. So just clearing a little bit, if you're new to what I do, this is where it all began. This is Salvia Appiana White Sage, which is why Sage Goddess is called Sage Goddess. To me, it's the most important part of the energetic practice, because when you burn incense, and in particular something like white sage that really does clear out all the low vibrations, you make space for healing and for laughter and for beauty and for emergence, right? But, we can't create beauty when there's too much clutter in the pipes. And so we have to clear energy, and that's what white sage is. I did Ayahuasca ceremony this weekend. That's what ayahuasca is. The beautiful human I do ayahuasca with calls himself, the Roto-Rooter, right? He's clearing out the big pipes so that you can continue to run energy. So you got to clear your pipes. I don't mean your physical pipes. I mean your energetic pipes, as it were. Right? No, you're fine. Ursula, you're right on time. I don't know. Somebody mentioned pizza. I'm not hungry, thank goodness, so I'm not reacting. Pizza's for me, one of the very core food groups in the world. So pizza is in one food group, and then nachos, which is one of my other favorite foods, is in a different food group, and then donuts is also a food group. So if you're really going to balance your diet, you got to make sure you have something from each of those food groups every day. One slice of pizza, a couple of nachos, a different kind of donut maybe, right? I like food. I try to eat healthy, but for goodness sake. And when you're on ayahuasca preparation, there's no donuts, no pizza, no cheese, no caffeine, no alcohol, no nothing, right? So it's like after ayahuasca, I really do enjoy my food, I have to say. That's so funny. Corinne's like, it's morning here, and so no pizza. But, you know, pizza's what's for breakfast, Corinne. Anyway. Okay. I'm Greek. I mean, I haven't ever really met a Greek person who didn't love food. I've met Greek people who said they didn't like food, but I don't think they were being honest. It's a genetic sort of responsibility that we have. It's a great question. Fair Bianca asked, is any idea when the serpentine stones are back in stock? Here's what's crazy about sagegoddess.com. I think there's 7,100 products on sagegoddess.com right now, and I think 2,000 of them are out of stock. Because it's like a lot of times it's stuff we can't get back in, but that's why we constantly have new things. So there's always about 4,000 or 5,000 products on sagegoddess.com that are in stock. But invariably, the magical people want the ones that aren't in stock. You know, they're attracted to that. So I will let you know, and I'll take a look at it for you too. How beautiful. So we've got the Netherlands in the house. Angel Alliance is there from the Netherlands. Bright blessings to you. Really cool to see how global and expansive our community is and how much light you reflect and shed and transmit from where you are. You're a blessing. So thanks for being here with us today. Okay. So I'm going to start with your questions. You know, sometimes with Cosmic Comfort, I kind of switch it up. Today I felt really called to dig into your questions because a lot of you sent in really good questions. You're always welcome to ask a question in the feed too. I know the crystal barrel I want to talk about really briefly with you too. So we'll talk about that as well. And then I have a little gift for you that we found today, and we're like, this would be really good for Cosmic Comfort. So I'll tell you about that when we're done, so that you focus. I want you to stay focused. Well, thank you for that, Kyle. Mwah. Thank you for being you too. Look at that. Simone's from Brazil, but she's been in South Florida, right, for 26 years. So that's really your home now. Look at that. I'm sorry to hear that Gypsy Spades and her dog Jack is not doing well. Jack is a grandpa doggy. He's 13 years old. Yeah. Yeah, it's true. Well, I'm so glad you guys are there. And cheers to all of you. Okay, so I'm gonna dive into the questions, and just don't hesitate to ask questions is what I would say. I'm really here for you. This is your hour of flow, right? It's sort of like this is your hour to talk about what's on your mind, and I can kind of go anywhere you want, and I'm an open book. So I'm sort of here at your service, as it were. But what the intention for Cosmic Comfort is to bring some comfort, is to bring some peace. It's to bring some alignment and a little bit of balance to the force, right? It's to maybe mirror back to you or send love to you too. If you need that energy today, I can provide that as well. So just dive in, and I'll try to get as many questions as I possibly can. Michelle's in Bloomington, Illinois, and it's cold and gray. I know. I wish I could put Los Angeles in a box and mail it to you, because we're at 95 degrees here in Los Angeles, and there isn't a drop of humidity in the atmosphere, for better or worse. Ashley asked, any tips or tricks for plant, scent, or crystal medicine for quitting smoking cigarettes? I'm 9 days without smoking and losing my mind. First of all, Ashley, I just want to hug you and tell you how proud of you I am. Quitting smoking, I've never been a smoker, so it hasn't been my challenge, but that's probably because I watched my mom smoking growing up, and I watched kind of what happened to her lungs. She has a very severe case of COPD and a lot of arthritis that's really inflamed by smoking. But it's the one I mean, not the only addiction that I think is really hard to kick, but it's one of them. And so I think the ultimate way to kick smoking or any addiction is to do plant medicine work, right? Ayahuasca and other such plant medicines can really unhook you from things that you think you're bound to. Outside of plant medicine work, I think it's really about working your will. And it's funny, like, this is why I brought, I don't think you in particular need the crystal barrel, but that's actually why I wanted to talk about it today, because so many of your questions were about will and willpower and how to acknowledge your will and to work with your will and to activate your will. Your will is very strong. And one of the reasons I think that a lot of people get called to quit smoking is their body recognizes how damaging it is and wants to save itself. You know, the body's always trying to seek what we call homeostasis, which is an internal sense of balance and alignment that brings you close to optimal physical health for your body. Yeah. And so I think your body intuitively knows the risks that it faces from smoking, and it wants to bring itself into some sort of optimal balance, and that's why you're feeling called to let it go. Amethyst is really good for addiction in general. Again, anytime you feel hooked into something, like you want to let it go, but you don't feel like you can, when that hook is in you, amethyst can be really helpful for that. And you can use essential oils too, work really well. What's the best essential oil I would say for addiction? Vetiver is pretty good. Vetiver is good. Patchouli can be good for addiction too, because these are oils that sort of ground you and they fill in the holes that you're trying to fill through smoking. So they work really well that way too. Oh, thanks, you guys. You guys are so kind. I'm way overdue for my hair appointment, and somebody said my hair looked good, and I was like, oh, thank you, because I'm really gray. Black pepper. Katie Marie says black pepper oil for smoking. Give it a shot. Do you know what I mean? And part of what I love about our community, thank you for that, Katie Marie, is they'll jump in. Rosie was saying black pepper too. Hypnosis does help, Stephanie Ann, and in my experience, quantum hypnosis techniques, what's known as QHHT, is probably the best. And if you don't know who Dolores Cannon is, she's one of my favorite, what we might call metaphysical writers. She came up with this phrase that I use even to this day called the waves of volunteers. And it describes, which wave you're in and why you came back to the planet at this time to volunteer to help our species through its ascension process. A really fascinating author. She died, I want to say 2016, and I was brokenhearted because it was on my bucket list to meet her one day, and then I realized I would never have the chance. But her book, she certainly lives on through her books, and then if you go to dolorescannon.com, you can actually find practitioners who are trained through her modality in a place near you. And so I would highly recommend QHHT, right? For sure. Okay. I'm glad you guys like her too. Black licorice is interesting too, Deanna. Thank you for all those tips, because like I said, I have massive compassion if you're a smoker. Like, I totally get it, even though I'm not a smoker. Just because I've lived with so many people over my life who desperately want to stop, and it's just so tricky. And then if you don't smoke, I'm just going to ask you today not to start. Wouldn't you guys say in the feed? If you had somebody who was like, oh, I think I want to smoke, what would you tell them? Even if you're a smoker. You'd probably say, like, don't even get on that train. You know what I mean? It's a hard train to get off once you start. Yeah. So I'm glad that came up, because I just want to send some, like, waves of support and love to you, compassion to you always. Yeah. Just don't do it. So I'm going to dive in. There's a couple questions that really jumped out, but I'm going to try to get to all of them, if I can today. That's awesome. Tammy Jo wants to become a QHHT practitioner. Well, listen, and I'll say this, whether it's shopping or smoking or drinking too much or eating too much, and my students would tell you the same thing, because we just had this whole conversation in my classes this week. You medicate in order not to feel, right? So here's what happens. You set an intention. I want to have a spiritual awakening, right? I want to enjoy my psychic gifts. I want to feel more alive. I want to feel plugged into those big energy streams. I want to manifest prosperity. I want to do all these things. And all of that requires opening and waking up. And man, as soon as you open and as soon as you wake up, what happens? All the feels, right? And so all of a sudden you're like, I've never felt this anxiety before. I've never felt this anger before. I've never felt this like I can't stop crying. And then people are like, whoop, 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 I don't want to go there. That wasn't what I wanted. So now I'm going to drink or shop or eat or smoke. I'm going to do that to get numb. Now, someone was saying that they medicate in order to feel. Wayne was saying in order to feel. I think that's a little different. Do you know what I mean? For example, like I live in a state where cannabis is legal, and I really love cannabis for creativity, because cannabis kind of opens me and I can hear psychically a little bit better. That's a little different. I'm not trying to fill a hole with it. I'm trying to tune into a different vibration with it. But it's in service of feeling more, not feeling less. Do you know what I mean? But alcohol isn't a teacher. It numbs, right? Smoking isn't in its form that we use it in the United States. I mean, there's sacred tobacco in Central and South America, but the tobacco in the U.S. isn't that. And it's not being used for that, you know? So it's about recognizing that sometimes certain things can help you feel more, but those usually aren't the addictive ones. You know what I mean? It's usually the ones that, that are addictive, that really are not opening you to sense something more. They're sort of closing you down. So anyway, cheers to that. So Jacqueline Downing had a beautiful question. She said, I think of grounding as good and necessary, but what about being too grounded? This might be an interesting question for you guys too. Can you be too grounded, right? What is the opposite of that for medicine? Is it fire? How can we untether a bit and then how do you get back down? Because I want to fly. Right? Okay. You can be too grounded, in my opinion. To me, depression is being too grounded. I wonder if that makes sense to you or resonates with you at all. Like if you can feel the energy of that concept. When you're too grounded on this planet, too grounded at your job, too grounded in your responsibilities, when you're too tethered to what's here, it's depressing. Because then you start feeling like not only are you in this world, but you start feeling like you're of this world. And something in you knows it's not of this world. Let's put it that way. Something in you knows you didn't come from here. When you die, you're not staying here. Something in you knows that you are an extraterrestrial, right? And so I think at a certain point when you start looking around and identifying with all the people around you and all the things around you, and when it becomes about the things and about the people, that becomes kind of empty and depressing. And I think that's why a lot of people find me in the work that I do in their like 40s and 50s, because they're like, this can't be it. It cannot be this life thing that we're doing. It can't just be about getting up every morning, doing that same commute, working that same job, coming home, cooking that same meal, having that same conversation, going to bed, getting up, it just can't be that. And that's when a certain amount of like sadness and discouragement come in. Like, please tell me there's more to this than that. And of course my answer is, of course there's more to this than that. And once you get to that place, right? And so it just can't, right, Wayne? I mean, it has to be about something more than that. And then what happens is you get to a place then where you realize, okay, so it is about something more than that. It isn't just about my job and where I live and what I can do for people and, the work that I do. It isn't just about that. Then comes a different kind of overwhelm. Like, ooh, so it is bigger than that, but how do I stay here and do all of the things I got to do and be a muggle, right? But also access some higher plane, some higher dimension. And does that mean I'm crazy? What if other people in my family or my life don't support that, right? So kind of walking you through the evolution of what I've seen happen for people over time. And then eventually the goal is balance and integration. I am in this world, but I'm not of this world. When this world is too much for me, I know what to do. I know how to meditate. I know how to clear energy. I know how to plug into different energy streams. I know how to attract new people, resources, and experiences. And so that is the goal. The goal is, and for me personally, what I would say is I do know how to do that. I've learned how to regulate. When this is all too much, I know what the signs of that are. I start feeling kind of snappy, or I start feeling tension in my back. Like I get physical signs and emotional signs and spiritual signs, and then it's time to unplug and find that balance, right? Oh, I'm glad that you weren't evacuated, Deanne. Is it really coming up where you are? Let's send some sweet air medicine and water medicine to that fire, to all of the fires that are burning. This is our fire season in Southern California, unfortunately, because the Santa Ana winds are doing their thing. So, yeah, remember, you're in this world, but you're not of this world. You aren't from here, you know. You just work here. So when you say, I just work here, you're honestly being honest. I just work here. I'm just visiting. I'm new here. We should all have pins that say, I'm new here. Or, you know, be patient with me. I'm still figuring this out. Right? Aho. We're just sending lots of love your way. Okay. So she's asking, what about being too grounded? And then what do you do if you're too grounded? How do you do that? And so remember that you're either going to be too grounded or not grounded enough most of the time. Almost none of us figure out that perfect balance thing and walk the line exactly the way that we're supposed to between worlds. So you're always going to be just a little bit too much that way or just a little bit too much that way, and trying to negotiate what that balance looks like for you. You're always going to be negotiating that. And that's why, so in my world, what we do is we work with crystals, and we work with essential oils, and we work with meditation, and we work with sound. Those are really the primary tools that I use to shift energy and frequencies. And so it's about developing your gifts of perception. What's going on here, right? How am I feeling? Let me check in. I'm feeling too this, too that, not enough of this, not enough of that. Okay, so if I'm feeling too sad, then that means I've leaned too far over into the water element, and so I need to balance that with the opposite element, which is air. So I need to breathe, I need to exercise, right? Because you need to circulate energy through your body. I need to work with copper maybe, which is all about circulating energy. And so you counterbalance. If you're feeling too grounded, then yeah, you have to work with fire energy. You need to create transformation, create change in some way, move the needle or shift the paradigm. So fire energy is all about encouraging playfulness and curiosity. You can light a candle, right, which invokes fire medicine. And so it's always about looking at different ways that you can balance. And we at Sage Goddess, we use the wheel of the year. And we also use the medicine wheel, which teaches us about the directions and the elements, and then how to counterbalance with those elements. And then, so like in my chart, I'm mostly fire. Big surprise, right? I'm a lot of fire. So I'm constantly trying to balance that fire with earth, which is probably why I married a man who's triple earth, right? And I have a son who's double earth. So I ended up creating a life and companioning myself with a life, like co-joining with a life of grounding. And so we are the yin to each other's yang. And I think a lot of us end up doing that in our partnerships too, right? Herbs to soften detoxing. My favorite herb to soften in general is buchu, as a lot of you know, because my students and I work with buchu leaf all the time. A little buchu, a little mugwort's really nice, a little blue lotus. You combine those three and make yourself a tea. Or take those herbs and put them in a little, you can get those things on Amazon. They're like little tea pouches. You can get disposable ones and organic ones where you can fill them full of herbs and then tie it, and you can put that in your bath. Draw yourself a beautiful bath, put some CBD oil in there. Like all of that would be really helpful for encouraging the softening as you go through detox. I actually do have great tips for urinary tract infection. Goldenrod tincture, which you can also find those on Amazon. Goldenrod is really good for UTI. And then you want to work with D-mannose, which is an amino acid, actually. But the one thing you don't want to do with a urinary tract infection, sorry, you guys have got allergies and there's constantly things in my eyes bothering me. The one thing you don't want to do with a urinary tract infection is take a bunch of antibiotics. I work with a slew of people who have sort of a predisposition toward chronic or have had chronic urinary tract infections. So apple cider vinegar is really good for prevention. Goldenrod tincture is going to be really good for you. And then D-mannose, which is capital D and then MANNOSE, I believe, which you can get online or at any health food store. And it naturally works the same way as an antibiotic without the antibacterial resistance that we don't want to create with the overuse of of antibiotics. So hopefully that's helpful. Yeah. Well, I should say, when I give you advice, I'm not a medical doctor. I am a doctor. I have a PhD, but it's not in medicine. What I'm sharing with you is really just sort of accumulated knowledge that I have gathered, having done Sage Goddess for 10 years and worked with herbs and essential oils for almost every possible medical condition, and then seen a lot of people have success with certain patterns and certain reactions that they have over time, right? Yeah. Vicky says she uses beer for her UTIs.
Power off.
There's my speaker again. Okay. So great question so far. Jennifer asked, how do I navigate a spiritual awakening? I've been struggling with this and trying to answer the question, what's my purpose? I'm feeling very lost at the moment, not very motivated, inspired, or creative. Been feeling this for the last 2 years. When will it end? Right? Well, thank you for that. Did you see that? Andrew said he's a nurse and stands by what I said. Mwah. Even if I was wrong, I'd want to know, though. I'd want you to go, well, try this other thing, too. But antibiotics are a big problem. People take them far too frequently and without considering, like, you should never take an antibiotic unless you have to. Same with steroids. Like, they cause chronic problems. And we're in a society where we just want to get over things quickly. We don't really think about the long-term implications of being on certain kinds of medicine. So, yeah. I don't know. Team SG will have to see about Buchu. Because it's so good. And if you can't find it from us, you can probably find it online on your own too. So let's go back to Jennifer, who is navigating a spiritual awakening, and she's trying to figure out what her purpose is. Right? What is my purpose? How many of you guys struggle with that? And here's the thing. I don't know about you, but even if you figure out what your like capital P purpose is, like your big purpose, right? There's still like these little purposes, like, should I be in this relationship? Or am I meant to explore this other new thing? Or, there's always this, like, these smaller questions come up. Like, I feel like I've found my probably big P purpose in this lifetime. But I'm still asking about what these other little bits and pieces are and how to integrate them and how to move into it more fully, right? Yeah, well, and I love that. Joan Connerton said, I just told my therapist today, I found my purpose. This is it, right? It's a great question. So one of the things I always like to remind you is you're never not on purpose. What happens to some people is they look around their life and they don't see it. And chances are you probably look around and you see how everybody else is doing their purpose. And you're probably like, well, she's doing her thing and he's doing his thing and she's doing that thing. But I don't know what my purpose is. And so what I like to tell people is your purpose is often so subtle. But it's the difference, and really hear me on this. Your purpose is the difference between how you do mundane things and how other people do mundane things. And let me try to give you an example to show that. I teach ceremony and ritual and gemology and aromatherapy. Like, I teach these things, and astrology. Other people teach these things too. I do it a little bit differently. I anchor it in mythology and anthropology and in sociology and psychology, and I anchor it in other traditions, and I incorporate it with things that I know that are sometimes different from what other people know, or experiences I've had that are different, or messages that I bring through from medicine space that other people don't have. So those differences are my purpose. It's my unique fingerprint. It's the edge that I dance on, right? So even if someone else does exactly what I do, they don't do it quite the way I do it, right? Maybe they're more serious about the way they do it, or maybe they don't do it live the way I do it online like this. Maybe they do it in writing, so they're just authors, right? And so even if we did the exact same thing, there are different flavors or edges to what I do. So what I would tell you or encourage you to think about is, what's unique? And even if you look through your life and go, nothing's unique, other people do everything I do. Really? You think about the people in this world who've really done something very, very different. There are other people doing similar things to them. It's the how, it's not the what. It's the how you do what you do that's your purpose, right? And so it could be about, I don't know, how you work with children, or how you work with animals, or how you communicate information that makes you really special and really unique. And what's fun is, and I've noticed this, I don't know if you've noticed it, but a lot of times you only see your fingerprint in later years of your life. Like when I look back now, I can see why I had all the weird experiences that I did, and why I learned all the things I did and had all the jobs that I did over time, because it's all kind of woven together into the fabric of this present moment. But for a while it felt really weird, right? Like I studied Latin for a long time. That seemed really weird. Why am I doing that? I didn't want to teach Latin. I use Latin in my online classes every time I teach, because I'm constantly taking them back to the roots of words to show them how so much of our history and our mythology is interconnected through our language. If I didn't read Latin, I wouldn't be able to do that. So you can look back at your life and say, you can look at it as the patchwork and say, I really still don't see it. Like why I did this, and why I married that person, and why I had that job, until you look back later and you realize how it's all woven, right? Ursula says she does all things with a whimsical neurosis that many find charming. She batted her eyelashes. It's true. It might be the way you do it, with more emotion, with more intensity, with humor, but there's always some edge. There's a fingerprint to you. And it's whenever anybody else tells me, I love to hear it, so I'll say the same thing to you. There will never be anyone else on this planet just like you. Not with your light codes, not with your fingerprints, not with your essence, not with your particular beauty and magic. No one else will ever take your place. And so it's about, like, sometimes I tell people, coach you as if you were your favorite client. Like if you sat you down and asked, if you were to ask yourself, what's my purpose? With so much love, what would you say to you? You would, if you were trying to acknowledge you in a fuller way, right? But if I had said to you maybe 15 years ago, I think my purpose is going to be around gathering people virtually to celebrate ancient traditions and to revive those traditions, to bring more meaning in life to today, to where we are today. And I think that's my purpose. 15 years ago, when nobody was doing that, because I was relatively new at it about 9 years ago, you probably would have been like, maybe you should keep your day job. Really? People are going to gather virtually around ancient traditions, and like, that's what you're here for? It's really true. So there's nobody quite like you. And no one else. I mean, if I were to sit down, and that's why also I think a lot of times people worry, like, well, what if somebody else comes up with my idea? No one else can do it the way you're going to do it. Nobody else can do it. I mean, you could give them the blueprints. You could script it for them, and they still wouldn't be able to do it the way you do it, because they're not you. I mean, you are such a magnificently unique creation, right? Just saying. It's really, really true. I'm proud of you guys, too. Well, it's really hard not to listen to naysayers, right? Because people will tell you all day long why your idea isn't good, or why it isn't responsible, or why you shouldn't give up your day job, or why, it's like people will tell you all day long. I always joke, nobody really believed, aside from me, that Sage Goddess was going to be what it is today, except me. And so I found myself being very quiet about it, because I knew that Sage Goddess was something magical. I didn't know what it was going to become, but I just had this feeling about it. It always felt magical. Really serendipitous. But when I would say things to people, they'd be like, okay, funky lady. And so it's like, maybe keep your stuff a little quiet till you get your energy together and you feel like you're in a place to communicate it more fully, Aw, it's really sweet. Crystal says, I'm a stay-at-home mom. I don't have any hobbies or anything like that. So I don't feel like I do anything or have anything to offer. How do you figure that out? So Crystal, here's the question for you. You ready? Let's say I took your babies for a day. Auntie Athena comes over and I am now in charge of your household. And they will listen and behave because it will be magic. So I'm coming over. I'm going to take over your household for a day. You don't have to worry about meals. You don't have to worry about cleaning or taking care of your children or anything. I want you out of the house at 8 a.m. and you can't come back to the house until 6 p.m. Let's say I had that magic wand and I could wave it. What would you do? Oh, and I would give you unlimited spending money for the day. So anywhere you wanted to go, anything you wanted to do, if there's a class you wanted to take, I've got your kids covered. What are you going to do for 8 hours or 9 hours? There is real wisdom in that question. Because all of the reasons that everybody gives for not finding their purpose is, I don't have time, I don't have money, I don't have inspiration, I don't have any of that stuff. Right? It's very interesting. Ask yourself. And those of you who are raising children on the spectrum, I just want to tell you, you've chosen an especially complex contract, right? But again, probably carrying that contract with a spirit and a love and a commitment that only you could bring to it. But no matter what challenges you face and the roles that you play in your life, you still have to look around and say, if I had everything at my fingertips, how would I spend my time? And then take one. Kids are well behaved around me. I have to say, I do have a little bit of a magic touch, and I don't give them sugar to do it. But I can't guarantee that when I hand them back to you, they would be in that same state. But if you give me kids and I have singing bowls and some crystals and a little bit of some snacks, kids and I are good for a good 4 or 5 hours. We can whip it up and really make it work. So what would you do? Myri says, I would run around intuitively healing people and their animals. You're getting closer to your purpose. Okay. So I'm sitting here with you right now. There's nowhere else in the world I would rather be. And it's kind of a profound blessing to be able to look at you and tell you that. This is talking to you and talking about what we're talking about and being surrounded by the people and the energy that I am in this moment is divinity to me. So I wouldn't trade this moment for any other moment. And I think that's ultimately the goal. It may not be what you love to do. It might be something that you would think is nuts. But for me, this is as good as it gets, this absolute moment. And so what that allows, right, is for me to just live in gratitude, which creates more blessings. But for a long time, I didn't realize that. And I just fought and fought. And it's and made excuses and justified. But there was rarely a moment where I would stop and say, there's nowhere else I'd rather be than right where I am right now. And thank you for this moment, right? Yeah. So, and let's go to Delia Santana, right? She said, I'm currently a NICU nurse. Thank you for that gift to the world. But feel I'm supposed to heal in another way. I bet you are. So how are you cultivating those gifts? Are you going through additional training? Are you starting to work with some of your clients kind of in another setting? Are you starting a support group around the other healing work that you would like to do? Maybe you're developing a meetup in your community and letting new moms or letting expectant moms who are experiencing complications know about what you're doing. Maybe you're weaving in Reiki training, or I don't know, you know what I mean? But it's when you have that feeling you're in the right profession kind of, but there's still something that you're not activating or something that you're not doing, start asking yourself again, how could you be bringing it in? So you're working with crystals, right? It's true. Marlene said naysayers can be good for you because they challenge you. It's true. But the one thing, Marlene, for me with naysayers, there's a fine line between challenging you and keeping you kind of creatively on your toes and then making you question your own intentions. So some naysayers are there to kind of instigate that level of thoughtful reflection within you so that you can push forward with greater certainty. But some naysayers are just, they get into your monkey mind. And then late at night, you're yeah, they're right? So because when I work with people in any part of my community, I'm always trying to get them to raise the vibration, right? To set an intention and raise a vibration to align with that. But as soon as somebody's a naysayer and they start getting you to question it, then the vibration goes down and goes down and goes down, and you fall out of alignment, and you don't end up manifesting what you want to create. So sometimes magic is about quiet. You know what I mean? Just not letting the whole world know what you're doing, because if there's too much, if people move into that space and get you to start questioning what you're doing and what you're thinking and what you're feeling, then it lowers the vibration. It makes it harder for you to manifest what you seek, right? So that's kind of, it's a fine line. Yeah, well, and so what will you do with that, right? Robert's asking, will 2020 be a better year than 2019? I know this has been the year to get rid of attachments and set the way to elevate our consciousness. For many people, 2019 has been, though, yeah. I do think it will be. What's really funny is when you look at the news or sort of world events, you don't see necessarily the ascension process that's happening on our planet. And that's because, at least what I've gotten in journey work, is when you look too much at like daily events or at the government or anything like that, your focus becomes so small and so narrow that you lose the macro perspective. And so while some people see this as kind of a depressing time on our planet, this is actually, at least from my perspective, one of the most exciting times to be alive. People are really opening their minds and broadening their perspectives and connecting more deeply with each other than they ever have before. I really truly feel that. There's a vast opening in the consciousness of our planet right now. So if you can avoid getting sort of, anytime you get too focused, I guess is my answer, Robert. If 2020 is going to be, because it's a 22 year, which is a master year, reduces down to a 4, which is the number of firm and solid foundation. So if you can see the world as uniquely supportive of you in 2020, that all your needs are met, just like the number 4 represents, right? The 4 elements are in balance, the 4 directions are in balance, 22 being a master number of personal and planetary ascension. So if you can macro out and keep your perspective and your focus on the bigger picture and seeing how people are really opening to each other in a new way, then 2020 becomes a year of possibility. 2019 has been a different year. It's the number 3, which is the triangle, right? And so there's balance, but there isn't foundation. So it can feel, at sometimes the energy can feel lopsided, too much light, too much shadow. It's like we can't quite find the balance. 2020 opens a new door for that to evolve. Very much so. Well, the Magician is my life path number. Right? So and the Magician is here to learn how to use his tools. That's the whole life trajectory of the Magician card. Which, by the way, if you're interested in all this is what I'm teaching in November in Soul Shift. So I'm teaching numerology and the major arcana archetypes from the Rider-Waite Tarot. So if you're ever interested in learning more about numerology and life path numbers and how to work with archetypes, both for your personal advancement, but also for your collective advancement. November's classes, you wouldn't have to join now, but you could join next week. November's classes are going to be really good for you. 1000%. And did you know, I'm going to teach this to my students next week, did you know, I got this in Ayahuasca, that when you're having, so like I'm a 110 life path, which is both the Fool and the Magician, right? Anytime you have a birthday, a birth year that comes back to the master number, so that can actually be the calculation of your birthday plus the current year, or it can be adding up your age. So I'm 46, which reduces to a 10. So this is a 10 year for me. So this is actually my year. This is a Magician year, starting in August, which is when my 46th birthday was. Last year was a 9 year, closing doors, completing cycles, fruition, completion. But 10 for me is my master year. And so think about it for a moment if this is your master year. In fact, figure out what your life path number is, and then figure out, using your age first, are you in one of your master years? It's interesting, right? Are you, Myri? We're both 10s. And PK is a 10 too. We're the Magicians. We're here to learn how to use our tools. And then the evolved Magician doesn't just learn how to use his tools. He learns how to use his tools to help others. That's the ultimate evolution of the Magician archetype, right? So super fun to learn all that, isn't it? So notice your years for sure. It is. So Robert, think about that, right? And also think about what number this is for you by your age, and keep an eye on that too, because you'll want to look at the energy of the year on its own, the energy of the year for you, so your birthday plus the year 2019, your birthday plus the year 2020, and reduce that down, and then looking at your birthday number too. Yeah, so life path number, Team FG, if you're there and you want to put up the little simple equation to show them the example. But like I was born on August 9th, 1973. So mine is 8 plus 9 plus 1 plus 9 plus 7 plus 3. And you take that and you reduce it down to a 2-digit number. And then you add those two together and you reduce it down one more time. And so you end up with either a single or a double-digit number. And then there's sort of a microscience around it of taking the reducing numbers. Like I'm a 3710, which is different than a 2810. So the reducing numbers even have meaning for how you get to your final life path number. Super fun, right? So like I said, if you're interested in this, you want the full deep dive, that'll be a week from Wednesday. So you would have almost 2 weeks to register for Soul Shift to get to session 1, which I think is happening on November 6th, if I'm not mistaken. So I would love to have you join us for that. What does it mean if the year is the same as the life path number? That means you're in a power year, you're in a master year. And so it's particularly powerful for you, like this year is for me. Right? Well, because Vedic astrology is different, Jan. So we're talking about Western astrology here. Vedic astrology is Eastern astrology. So it's a really different. I talk a little bit about this in my Crystal Lore book, about the differences between Western and Eastern astrology if you're interested in that. And of course, you can always go down the rabbit hole of Vedic astrology too if you're interested in learning more about that. I focus on Western astrology because it's the common paradigm in the United States, but certainly Vedic astrology is interesting and has a longer lineage, I would say, because it's based in the Vedas, which are the original Hindu spiritual texts and some of the oldest spiritual texts ever to exist. Super interesting, right? We went down a fun rabbit hole for a minute. Okay. Vanya, but also a couple of other people were talking about learning how to love themselves. And I wanted to touch on that too. Can you guys believe it's 4:50? Like sometimes I get into work that we're doing and it's like a vortex. I can't believe 50 minutes has gone by. It's really nice to be with you. And there's a lot of that. Cynthia Alred was asking, how do I get out of my own way? And then Crystal Freeman was asking about balance. So was Melissa Velasco was asking about balance. Amy Arabia was asking about 3 a.m. wake-up calls from Spirit, which does happen to quite a few of us, actually. And you have to look at the time you're waking up. So 3 a.m. wake-up calls are often thought to be associated with holy trinities. That could be Father, Son, Holy Spirit. That could be Maiden, Mother, Crone. That could be the primary phases of the moon, like the number 3. Waking up at in the 4 o'clock hour in the middle of the night. We go by angel numbers for all of this, but 4 is, again, the number of balance. So something's out of balance potentially in your life, and you're getting wisdom during that 4 a.m. hour to bring it back into balance. Could be part of the answer, too. But this self-love thing I really want to speak to, especially while I've just been through a really beautiful medicine journey. I think this is the number one thing that most people have to work on. Because people who really do love themselves and have the capacity to forgive themselves and to appreciate themselves and have some admiration for themselves. I'm not talking about ego, but I'm saying an honest and candid amount of self-love. Acknowledging all that you've been through and how you've emerged from the struggles that you've faced. That is the number one most important thing that you can do to change your life. I truly believe, and I say this all the time, we have an epidemic of autoimmune disease in our country. I have so many friends who live outside the U.S. who don't want to live here because they believe that our food is poisoned and our air is poisoned. They don't see the U.S. as a very healthy place to live. And it's true. I travel all over the world, and every time I'm outside the U.S., the food's a little fresher. At least it tastes that way, and it feels that way in my body. My digestion gets better. And so I think part of the reason that we, in addition to not having the best food on the planet here in the United States, I think part of the reason we have this pandemic of autoimmune disease is that we aren't loving ourselves. I can't expect you to love me or have compassion for me or even empathy for me or appreciation for me if you don't have it for you first. You know what I mean? And the people in my life who are the healthiest, physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, are also the ones who cut themselves some slack, who pat themselves on the back once in a while, who aren't constantly running this inner monologue and this outer monologue of you could have, you should have, why didn't you, wasn't good enough, all of that stuff, right? Well, Kimberly Aaliyah is asking about fibromyalgia is a very serious condition, and yet it's just an accumulation of symptoms, some of which are atopic, right? They don't have an origin point in the body or rooted to a particular disease. So it's a very frustrating condition to try and treat, and it strikes a lot of empaths in particular. And so I think part of it is empaths are really good about caring about other people, wanting to help other people, but when it comes time for them to care for themselves or to create boundaries for themselves or to ask for what they need, it's like a no-go. And so it's like really making sure in your life that you treat yourself the way you treat other people, which means forgiveness. Like once and for all, can you really forgive yourself for that thing that you did 20 years ago that you still think about at night? You know what I mean? Or once and for all, can you fully love yourself even though maybe you made a mistake in that relationship? I bet most of you have at least one thing that you are fully beating yourself up about. And I bet for at least one or two of you, it's probably a couple decades old. And meanwhile, while you're still living in that story, like the rest of civilization has moved on, right? But you get stuck in this story, and I'll tell you something, that's the origin of disease. Because disease and pain are nothing more than stuck energy in your physical body. So if you're in pain or you're overweight or you're having health problems, it's a really good sign to you that now is the time to forgive yourself, to release what happened in the past and stop living inside of a story that isn't maybe accurate for you anymore, right? And I was talking to my students about this week too. It's like people want to honor their ancestors by telling old stories about them, and it's like, but make sure the stories are the best stories. Don't make your ancestors live in old stories either by reviving the same story about Uncle Joe and how he always drank too much at Thanksgiving or whatever. It's like, learn to live inside a more beautiful story and give other people the freedom to live inside a more beautiful story too. And every time you think about something from the past that frustrates you or someone who hurt you, remember that maybe they're not in that story anymore. So maybe you don't need to be in that story anymore. You have to get tired of the stories and see them as clothing that doesn't fit before you're willing to move out of them and live in something more beautiful. But I think it's the secret to it all. I think that's actually how people age better. I'm interested in aging because I'm about to turn 50 in a couple of years, right? And I notice people around my age are either really thriving, they look young, they feel vital, you know what I mean? They still got lots of energy, or they're starting to bottom out a little bit. And I think the difference is whether they're still running these old narratives, back when I was 25, kind of thing. And it's like, okay, but you're not 25 anymore. Do you know? Can we liberate that person? It's very interesting, isn't it? Yeah, and then watch them fall away, right? And then, but also giving people the space to live outside their stories too. So it's really beautiful. And I will tell you, this applies even in intimate relationships. I've been with my husband for 20 years, and we have some old narratives, and we make a conscious commitment to help each other live new stories in that relationship, so that we're not bound to that one fight we had when 3 years into our relationship or whatever. I mean, I'm making something up. Do you know what I mean? There are these key points that we can keep going back to, and it's like, who's that serving? And this, what I'm sharing with you now, seriously, if you work this medicine accurately, then your age is just a number. Because your spirit is youthful, right? The expression of your spirit is youthful because it's not bound and chained to a past that doesn't even exist anymore. Unless you want it to exist. You can keep recreating the past if you want, but at what price to your body, right? So a lot of the questions that came up around feeling overwhelmed, when is enough, how do I deepen my spiritual gifts? I would tell you that a lot of the answers to those questions are sort of nestled in what we're talking about now. when you decide to let go, it's not an action, it's a decision, as I told my students this week. When you're ready to let go, it's not an action, it's a decision. Are you ready to let go? Then it's done. I mean, you don't have to sign a form. There's no waiver. You know what I mean? Like, it's not a contract. It's just, after today, I've decided just to let that go. I didn't get what I wanted from my parents. I'm going to let that go. You know, something happened in my marriage 15 years ago. I'm going to let that go. I'm never going to think about it again or talk about it again because that story is not active anymore. It's not interesting. I learned what I needed to learn from it. I'm not going to keep reviving it, right? So pick it up, put it down. Shitstains says, I can't let go. Hence the name, perhaps. I'm laughing with you, not at you. And sometimes, here's what I will say too. When you think you can't let go, sometimes it's because we don't want to let it go. Because sometimes our stories do serve us. They get us some pity. They get us some attention. I'm so sorry that happened to you. Poor you, kind of thing. Like sometimes we end up being served, right, by our stories. And so I actually have people say, I'm afraid to let it go because I don't know who I am without that story. And when I've had people say that to me, that's one of the most intense truths I think someone can say. I don't know if I can let that go because I don't know who I am without it. Right? Really, really, really interesting. It's true. And Amanda Joanne said sometimes guilt keeps you from it, right? It's really, really true. And then Dawn says sometimes we don't know what to fill the hole with, though. And so that's where your spiritual practice becomes really, really critical. And, here's the thing. I believe in God. It doesn't really matter to me if you do. Okay, so if you're new to working with me, you'll hear me say God, okay? I grew up in a Christian tradition, and it still really resonates with me, but you can believe in whatever you want. So you can, because I think God goes by 1,000 names. Right, so if you're born and raised in India, God may not be the word that you use, right? So you may speak more of Ganesha or Lakshmi, or because that's God takes on these other faces. If you're born and raised in a Muslim country, then you're going to probably refer to God as Allah, right? Because that's how God emerged to you and presented the essence of that spirit to you. So what I would say to you is, if you're really ready to do this work, set it down and then ask God, okay, or whoever you speak to as your creator, and that doesn't matter to me what that is. Ask that essence to fill all the voids, cracks, tears, holes, and perforations that are incomplete within you right now. Amen, aho, and so it is. Come in and fill it with divine, white, beautiful light. Remove what doesn't serve me anymore. Unhook me from all the old stories. You can say it with me if you want. Unhook me. Untether me from these stories that I don't even know these stories, right? Liberate yourself just a little bit. Forgive yourself. And then ask that essence, source, creator, however you frame it, to come in and fill every possible gap, hole, perforation, tear within you, every place in you that's broken. Ask that essence to fill that space with the highest white light, the highest possible frequency of love and peace. And then just receive that for a minute and recognize what that is. And then watch how that nagging back pain you've had for 5 years starts to, or that lingering cold you've had for a month goes to, it's energy is a very powerful thing. And if you've been holding on to a lot of anger and frustration and sadness and grief and regret, if you've been holding all of that, then you'll start to notice where your body was keeping the score on that, right? Maybe in your lower back, or maybe it's been in your shoulder blades, and watch how the energy sort of unwinds itself, right? Oh, that's beautiful. Alexandria's been doing some shamanic release. It's very powerful. I'm so glad to hear it touched you, Dawn. Thank you for that feedback. And it's really, really true. And this is the season to do it, because next Wednesday and Thursday is a portal. So there's 2 days in the year, May 1st and November 1st, October 31st. And they're across each other on the calendar, the wheel of time. So they're 6 months apart almost to the day. And those 2 days are portals, they're openings. It's easier for you to contact spirit guides. Your ancestors are more around right now than usual because it's a little terror, in the dimensional space. So it opens those doorways to 4th and 5th dimension energies, which are outside of time and outside of space, right? Have you ever read Wrinkle in Time? I read it to my son. I love that book, and I read it to him for school this past year. And so you're tesserating, right? You're moving out of 3D into 4D and then into 5D and then beyond into angelic gateways up toward the 12th dimension. And so it's, when you create that kind of space energetically during these portal times, your body opens too. And it's amazing how you can work with that energy. And you only have about a week to do it right now. So our timing of being together and me even saying this to you, I think is really, intentional on the universe's part to some extent. Isn't it beautiful? I'm glad it worked for you today. I would say November 1st is a powerful manifestation day. November 1st, November 11th, obviously 11/11. It's a master day, master number day. So that's a very powerful number for manifesting in general, but also for attracting what we call twin flame energies, being more connected to soulmates, whether that's romantic relationships or friendships. I have several friends who I consider to be soulmates. So all of those days are ahead of us. Some of the most fun days of the year are ahead of us in just a couple weeks. So crystals for college students, Kyle, the number one stone you have to have is fluorite. And I love working with fluorite in its natural octahedron form. We have some at sagegoddess.com. You may have one already. Fluorite grows in that octahedral shape, which is, the direct pyramid and the inverted pyramid in once. Octahedral crystals are always magic for manifestation. Diamonds are octahedral. What am I thinking of? Really important for manifestation. It's like skipping my mind. It'll come to me. Is octahedral. And so that's a really powerful crystal for college students to work with. Fluorite's really good for memory. I used to be a college professor, and so I remember handing out tumbled fluorite to my students before tests, which they always appreciated. Some of them probably thought it was weird, but they always seemed to appreciate. Oh, zircon, thank you for that. Absolutely. So zircon is octahedral. Yeah, absolutely so much. So citrine's good too. Citrine's a good prosperity stone. The reason I have two things to show you really quick. The rarest stone on sagegoddess.com right now is the stone of the will. It's actually a biblical stone. This stone is called chrysoberyl. It's also known as chrysolite, and it was in the breastplate of Aaron in the Old Testament of the Bible. And so we had these generators made for us. These don't exist anywhere online because they got the rough and they asked what forms we wanted, and we had them make generators for us to raise that energy. Aren't they cool? Technically, these are obelisks because they're 4-sided instead of 6. But same energetic principle. They're raising energy. They're raising the frequency. And so these, I wanted to tell you, this would be good. The reason this is such a powerful stone, it's manifestation of the will and happiness. This was in the breastplate of Aaron. It represented the tribe of Asher, which is one of the oldest tribes in the Bible, and it's considered the happiest and most prosperous tribe of the Bible. So I thought I'm going to mention those to them today, just because they actually, when they came up for us, when we first listed them, I think it was on a weekend, and it's sort of like, I kind of forgot about them, and a lot of us forgot about them, and I wanted to come back to them because they're so unique and special and let you know that those are there. So what we're doing today is a special little gift for you guys, because we always do something special for Cosmic Comfort. We have 100 of these garnet bracelets. And so if you do place an order on sagegoddess.com for anything, fluorite, octahedrons, or whatever tickles your fancy, the first 100 of you are going to get an Mundane garnet bracelet. Got stuck on my ring. That has these little sterling silver little beads on either side. Aren't they beautiful? So you can actually recite a mantra with this if you want, or just wear it. Mundane garnet is a really beautiful grounding stone. So but you have to say comfort in your notes. That's how they'll know that you're one of the 100 who's going to get a bracelet. It doesn't matter what you buy. There's no minimum. So anything you get, you're going to get a free garnet bracelet today. And I have a giveaway. I didn't want to say it at the beginning because I didn't want to distract us from what we were focused on, but when I was in Denver, I got this pendant. I picked this pendant and I saved it for tonight. Something told me the next time you see Cosmic Comfort, you have to give this away. So I'm going to show you this pendant and see who feels called to it. First of all, it's beautiful, I think. It's a substantial pendant too, and it's all done in sterling silver. But it has Tiffany stone up here at the top. These are all crown chakra stones. It has Tiffany stone, which is for channeling and intuition. And then it has lepidolite, which is for peace and relaxation. And then it has 2 cut and faceted checkerboard amethysts for detoxification and release from addiction. Peace, intuition, and release from addiction. Isn't that a cool combination? And it's all open on the back. So this is probably about $100 pendant, but I'm giving it away. So if you feel connected to it, just say yes in the feed, or please, or I need that pendant in my life right this very minute. Isn't it gorgeous? I was going to wear it, but then there was so much happening right before I went live with you. I didn't have a chance to find a necklace to put it on, but we'll send it to you on a chain so it's all ready for you to wear. So if you're feeling it, just say yes in the feed. And I'm going to see where my intuition leads me. Isn't it beautiful? Do you love it? I'm so glad that it speaks to you too. This is it. The obelisks are chrysoberyl. CHRYSOBERYL. Isn't it a beautiful stone? That's chrysoberyl. And I think there's 2 different sizes of the obelisks, if I'm not mistaken. Maybe it's just one size, but it's for your personal will, honoring your will and strengthening your will. I know. Isn't it beautiful? Did you enjoy the hour? Okay, this is the pendant. Isn't it beautiful? Let me know if you're feeling called to it. If you need more peace in your life and just a little release and to activate more of your spiritual gifts, it might be speaking to you. And it's an honor to give away pieces like this, honestly. I think this is so beautiful. And I love that the lepidolite is natural, too. Sometimes when we polish our stones, we get them away from how Mother Nature created them, and I feel like they lose a little bit of their energy. So I kind of like it when things are more natural. Isn't that beautiful? All right, let me see where Spirit is leading me. What a blessing to be with you guys this evening. Okay. Oh, I love that so much. All right, Spirit says it is Candace Mills. Candace Mills, this one belongs to you. And it feels like it's well timed for you. Have you been feeling stressed out? They're saying pressure. Your spirit guides are saying pressure. Have you been feeling pressure on you? This is going to release a little bit of that pressure, I think. If you've been feeling like it's just too much coming at you or too much, there's like intensity around you is what I'm feeling. And this will kind of mitigate, I think, some of the effects of that intensity and help you manage it a little bit better. So congratulations to you, Candace. What a joy it is to bring this beautiful pendant home to you. And I will get it right into Alexis and Hannah's hands to ship it off to you tomorrow. Super, super, super beautiful. Congratulations and enjoy. I wish you every piece and every ounce of beauty and connection and release as you wear this beautiful piece, Candace. So many blessings to you. All right, you guys. Well, I hope you enjoyed tonight. I sincerely hope that you did. It was a pleasure, as it always is, and an honor to be in your presence. And so I will probably see you at some point tomorrow and over the weekend. And then don't forget, next Wednesday, the 30th, is our live Samhain ceremony here in Los Angeles, here in my classroom. We're doing a beautiful candle lighting ceremony and then having proper Samhain ceremony from 6 to 7. And then we'll also be online with you next Wednesday too for a virtual version of the same ceremony. So I hope you can join us either here in person or live online with us at the same time. But thank you for being there. Thank you for joining us for Cosmic Comfort. If you do order anything today, it's just the first 100 of you are going to get a beautiful garnet bracelet as my gift. Make sure that you say comfort in your notes at checkout. There is a sale happening today. It's 17% off too. So that code is Spirit17. Make sure you use your code. in addition to saying comfort, so I can give you your bracelet too. And that's it, you guys. We'll look forward to seeing you. Have a great rest of your Thursday evening. Stay tuned. More cosmic comfort to come for you next month, and we'll look forward to seeing you then.